Every year, hundreds of millions of tourists set foot in Europe. They line up at the foot of the Eiffel Tower, crowd the canals in Venice, or wait for hours to take a photo in Santorini. But there is a very interesting paradox. The more people come to Europe, the fewer people actually see the true wonders of this continent. Because the most memorable beauty often does not lie in the most crowded places. It appears on a solitary church amidst a lake as blue as jade, in a monastery hovering atop a rock hundreds of meters high, under an aurora borealis covering a mountain shaped like a witch's hat, or among cliffs that have silently faced the Atlantic Ocean for millions of years. This is not a video about famous check-in spots. This is a journey to explore places where nature, history, and people still coexist as if time has never hurried. And perhaps, after watching, you will realize that paradise is not the most beautiful place on the map, but the place that makes you want to slow down. Let's get started. There was a taxi driver in Edinburgh who once told me a very short sentence. Here, we don't walk past history. We go to work, go to school, and buy coffee amidst history. At that moment, I just smiled. But then, when I stepped onto the stones smoothed by millions of footsteps on the Royal Mile, I realized he wasn't exaggerating at all. In many places, history is kept behind glass in museums. In Edinburgh, history still wakes up every morning, opens its windows, greets the people as they step out onto the streets, and quietly accompanies them throughout the day. The Royal Mile connects the old town with Edinburgh Castle, resembling a river of time flowing through the city. On both sides are grey stone houses, old pubs, street, Giles Cathedral, with its distinctive crown tower, and narrow alleys just wide enough for two people to pass each other. The astonishing thing is that the entire Old Town and New Town have been recognized as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO since 1995, not because they are too perfect, but because they still retain the way a city develops naturally over hundreds of years. Edinburgh Castle, standing on a volcanic rock over 340 million years old, has existed for more than 900 years, witnessing countless battles, coronation ceremonies, and even the darkest periods of Scotland. But this is what surprised me the most. Every August, when the Edinburgh Festival Fringe takes place, over 3,000 art performances cover the city, turning it into the largest performing arts festival in the world. Imagine street performers, actors, musicians, and audiences from all over the planet flooding the streets that have existed for centuries. The past and the present do not clash, but blend together like two layers of color on the same canvas. Perhaps that is the secret that prevents Edinburgh from ever becoming a dead old city. It continues to grow without losing its memory. If you also love lands that make people want to slow down and observe more, don't forget to like and subscribe, because our journey has just begun. And then, when we leave the cobblestone streets of Scotland, we will arrive at a place where history gives way to nature. There, amidst the crystal clear lake, there is a small island that makes the whole world feel like they are stepping into a fairy tale. Imagine a fall morning. The surface of the lake is as smooth as a freshly polished mirror. A thin mist still lingers over the water, and in the middle of that scene is a small island with a white bell tower rising against the sky. A little further away, Bled Castle stands on a high cliff like a guard who has been awake for centuries, with the snow-covered Julian Alps behind it. If someone said this was the setting of a fantasy film, you would probably believe it right away. But this is Lake Bled, a real lake in Slovenia, where nature seems to have decided to tell a fairy tale with stone, water, and light. Interestingly, Lake Bled was not created by humans, but formed after the last ice age, when the glaciers receded and left behind the emerald green lakebed we see today. The small island in the middle of the lake is also the only natural island in all of Slovenia. Every year, hundreds of thousands of tourists row traditional wooden boats called pletna to reach the Church of the Assumption. According to local tradition, anyone who pulls the rope and rings the bell in the church with their own hands and prays sincerely will be blessed with good luck. It sounds like just a legend, but what's noteworthy is that many people still patiently line up just to perform that ritual. And perhaps that is what makes Lake Bled special. We often think that fairy tales are only for children. But standing in front of this scene, you will realize that adults also need places to continue believing that the world still holds wonders. There is a detail that not everyone notices. Before entering the church, Traditionally, the groom will carry the bride up the 99 stone steps leading to the top of the island. The locals believe that if he can do it without stopping, the marriage will be filled with happiness. Just a small custom, but it has persisted for centuries, as if the entire island is quietly preserving its belief in good things amidst an increasingly pragmatic world. If you come here, don't rush to leave after just a few photos. Walk the entire 6-kilometer path around the lake. Each viewpoint will tell a different story. Sometimes the water surface reflects the clouds, sometimes the castle appears to be floating in midair. But the beauty of nature is not always as gentle as the surface of Lake Bled. Just leave Slovenia and head toward Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we will encounter a place where the water no longer whispers. It begins to roar amidst the vast wilderness. More than 20 waterfalls simultaneously cascade into an emerald green lake, forming a white curtain nearly 120 meters wide and about 25 meters high. Just that number alone is enough to make Kravika one of the most remarkable natural wonders in the Balkans. But when standing in front of this place, you will quickly realize that what is most impressive is not the height or width of the waterfall. It is the feeling that everything operates in such harmony that humans almost disappear from the picture. No skyscrapers. There are no gigantic man-made structures. Only water, stone, greenery, and time together built a cathedral of nature that no architect could sketch. Kravika is located about an hour's drive from the city of Mostar, nestled among the green forests of Bosnia and Herzegovina. The Trebizond River has patiently eroded the limestone for thousands of years to create the nearly perfect horseshoe shape of the waterfall cluster we see today. At the end of spring and the beginning of summer, when the snow on the mountains melts combined with heavy rainfall, the water flow becomes much stronger. From afar, the sound of the waterfall resembles the roar of a storm, but as you get closer, you realize it is millions of droplets joining together in an endless symphony. What surprised me the most was not the waterfall itself. If you look closely from above, you will see that the trees almost embrace the entire cliff, creating the impression that the waterfall is being supported by the forest. Ecologists consider this area a valuable ecosystem with many species of birds, fish, and plants characteristic of the Balkan karst region. Nature here is not built in straight lines like modern cities. It creates beauty with curves, asymmetry, and even empty spaces. It is precisely that imperfection that makes everything more perfect than any design by humans. Standing before Kravika, it's hard not to wonder, have the greatest works on Earth ever needed cement or steel? The journey ahead will take us to lands where each mountain and each river carries its own unique story. And after the continuous sound of water cascading in Bosnia, the next stop is completely different. On the west coast of Ireland, the colossal cliffs have stood there for millions of years, silent against the storms of the Atlantic, as if the stones themselves knew how to recount the history of the earth. The Irish have a very nice saying. If you want to understand the Atlantic, stand on Moher. The first time I heard that saying, I thought it was just a poetic way of promoting tourism. But then, when I stood on the edge of the cliff, watching the white-capped waves continuously crashing against the foot of the mountain, I realized they were not talking about the sea at all. They're talking about time. There are places that make you feel higher than the water's surface. The cliffs of Moher, on the other hand, make you feel smaller than a moment in the history of the earth. These cliffs stretch approximately 13 kilometers along the west coast of Ireland, and at their highest point rise about 214 meters above sea level, equivalent to a building over 60 stories tall. But the astonishing thing is not in that height. Geologists believe that most of the sandstone and shale layers here were formed over 300 million years ago, when this area was still under an ancient sea. Wind, waves, and rain have patiently done their work day after day, year after year, like a sculptor who never rests. Humans often take a few years to build a structure. Nature is willing to take hundreds of millions of years to create a masterpiece. There is a very interesting detail that many people only realize after coming here. If this scene looks familiar, it might not be because you've been to Ireland, but because you've watched Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. The Cliffs of Moher area itself is the inspiration and setting for the cave segment containing the Philosopher's Stone. But what I remember most is not the cinematography. It was the moment when thousands of seabirds nested on the cliffs, flying in circles amidst the sound of the wind and the waves. Each breeding season, this place becomes home to tens of thousands of individuals from various seabird species. From a distance, the entire cliff seems to be moving, as if time itself has a breath. Standing at Moher, you no longer look down at the water's surface. You are looking down at the layers of the planet's memories, where each layer of rock is a page written by the wind and the ocean. Perhaps that is also the reason millions of tourists still come here every year, not just to take a photo, but to experience a very rare feeling, standing before something greater than themselves. If you are enjoying this journey, please give it a like and subscribe. Ahead, there are still places where beauty is not created by time, but by the way, people have learned to live with nature over hundreds of years. And, leaving the shores of Ireland, we will head to southern Italy. There, the rocks are no longer majestic cliffs, but have become white villages, green gardens, and an elegant lifestyle that has endured for centuries. There is a very interesting paradox about Capri. This is just a small island off the southern coast of Italy, with an area of less than 11 square kilometers, so small that driving around the island doesn't take much time. However, for over 2,000 years, from Roman emperors, writers, and painters to modern movie stars, everyone has sought to set foot here. What makes a small island so irresistibly attractive? Perhaps Capri has never tried to become the center of the world. It is precisely its tranquility that makes the whole world want to come. As soon as the boat docks at Marina Grande, you will understand that feeling. The white houses nestle on the mountainside, their balconies adorned with bougainvillea, the narrow stone paths winding around lush gardens, and in the distance, the deep blue of the Mediterranean. Everything in Capri seems just right, not ostentatious, not noisy. The Italians have a wonderful phrase, la dolce vita, the sweet life. And Capri is like a place where that word is transformed into a landscape. The most famous spot on the island is the Blue Grotto, a sea cave where sunlight penetrates the water and reflects off the cave's ceiling, illuminating the entire space with an almost luminescent blue. Every year, hundreds of thousands of tourists patiently line up just to sit in a small boat for a few minutes inside the cave. But what I remember most is not the Blue Grotto. It was when standing on the summit of Monte Solaro, looking at the 3 Faraglioni rocks towering in the sea. They are not just gigantic limestone rocks, but like 3 sentinels who have silently stood there for centuries, witnessing ships, empires, and even civilizations come and go. There is a detail that very few people notice. Since the time of Emperor Tiberius of Rome, nearly 2,000 years ago, Capri has been chosen as a royal retreat. Tiberius had many villas built on the island and ruled the Roman Empire from there for many years. Then there were writers like Maxim Gorky, artists, designers, and countless famous directors. They do not come because Capri has the greatest structures, but because this place offers something very rare. A tranquility beautiful enough to spark the imagination. Perhaps beauty always attracts culture, for when nature reaches a perfect balance, humans also want to create even more beautiful things. If you also believe that there are places where just sitting and watching the sea is a valuable experience, don't forget to give a like and subscribe to continue this journey with us. Because the deeper we go into Europe, the more we realize that beauty is not just for looking at, but also for feeling. And if Capri makes people want to speak softly so as not to disturb that tranquility, the next stop in Iceland will create a completely opposite feeling. A solitary mountain under the northern sky will make all natural sounds disappear, leaving only the silence of the earth and sky. A mountain shaped like a witch's hat. A small waterfall flows quietly in front, and above is the northern sky, where the aurora can suddenly appear like a moving strip of green silk. That is Kirkjufell. The special thing is that this mountain almost never looks the same. As soon as the light changes, the entire scene changes as well. The dawn makes it soft like a watercolor painting. The sunset casts a warm golden hue over the mountain peak. At night, when the sky is filled with stars or the aurora borealis appears, Kirkjufell resembles a scene from another planet. About 463 meters high, Kirkjufell is not the tallest mountain in Iceland, but the reason is very simple. There are few places where just moving the camera a few steps can give you a completely different photo. In front is the Kirkjufellsfoss waterfall, behind is the sea bay, and the light continuously rewrites the landscape. The Icelanders probably understand this better than anyone else. They don't just admire nature, they patiently wait for the moment when nature decides to reveal its beauty. There is one thing I really like about Kirkjufell. Many people think the secret to getting a beautiful photo is finding the right angle. But here, the secret is to go back. Spring brings with it meadows and wildflowers. Summer is covered in green. Winter transforms the entire mountain into a block of white crystal, and from around September to March, Kirkjufell becomes one of the ideal places to observe the northern lights. The same mountain, but 4 seasons create 4 different personalities, like an actor who doesn't change their face, but only the stage lighting, transforming into a completely new character. Perhaps that is what Iceland wants to remind us. Nature never stands still. It is the light that is the true artist of this world. And leaving the land of ice, wind, and auroras, we will move to a place where winter no longer means cold. In the far north of Finland, there is a land that proves snow can also bring a feeling of warmth, like coming home. If there is a place where snow doesn't evoke a sense of coldness, but instead makes you want to stay longer, it is Lapland. This may sound contradictory, especially to many people who grew up in regions with harsh winters. But when the pine forests are covered in white snow, the golden light spills out from wooden houses, and the night sky suddenly lights up with the aurora borealis, you will understand why so many people do not see winter as something to endure, but as the most beautiful season of the year. Lapland is located in the far north of Finland and extends across the Arctic Circle. Interestingly, there are more reindeer here than people living in the area. If converted, for every person you meet, the likelihood is very high you will encounter a few 4-legged residents leisurely walking through the snowy forest. The harsh climate has shaped the way of life of the people here. They do not fight against winter, but learn to live with it. From houses designed to retain heat, traditional saunas, to activities like skiing, reindeer sledding, or ice fishing, all show that humans can turn nature's challenges into a part of their cultural identity. What surprised me the most was that Lapland is not only beautiful in winter. In summer, the phenomenon of the midnight sun occurs here, when the light hardly fades for weeks. In contrast, winter has long nights, creating ideal conditions for observing the aurora borealis. Those two completely opposite extremes coexist in one land, just as Lapland always reminds us that nature never has just one face. And perhaps it is not a coincidence that Rovaniemi, the city considered the official hometown of Santa Claus, is located here, a symbol of warmth born in the coldest land in Europe. And after the land of white snow and auroras, we will arrive in Greece, where people once did what seemed impossible, building centuries-old monasteries on top of vertical stone pillars, as if wanting to bring faith closer to the sky. Once, I asked a local guide, why did they choose to build monasteries on almost inaccessible stone pillars? He smiled and replied softly, because they are not looking for an easy place to live. They seek a place that brings them closer to the sky. Just that one sentence made the entire scene of Meteora before my eyes suddenly take on a completely different meaning. These are not just gigantic rocks in the plains of Thessaly. This is where faith has changed the way people perceive and use the landscape. Millions of years ago, nature erected sandstone pillars, hundreds of meters high like natural towers. By the 14th century, Byzantine Orthodox monks began building monasteries on those very rock peaks to seek tranquility and avoid conflicts in the plains below. At one point, 4 monasteries existed on these mountain peaks. Today, only 6 monasteries remain active, and the entire area has been recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1988. The astonishing thing is that for centuries, building materials were pulled up using pulleys, rope nets, and human strength. Just thinking about bringing each stone and each beam of wood to such heights is enough to see that faith can sometimes be stronger than gravity. But what truly touches the emotions in Meteora is not the construction technique. It is the feeling that every structure here does not attempt to overshadow nature. The earthy stone domes, ancient walls, and small windows blend into the color of the cliff so much that from a distance, the monastery seems to rise from the very rock itself. They do not stand over nature to assert power. They stand beside nature with humility, like a whisper that humans can still create greatness without breaking what has existed before them. If you also love places where history, faith, and nature tell a story together, please give a like and subscribe to continue the journey with us. Our journey is nearing its final 2 destinations, where each region will offer a very different definition of beauty. And leaving the rocky peaks of Greece, we will arrive in the French countryside, where beauty does not lie in the sky, but spreads through every vineyard, every ancient street, and even the taste of a glass of champagne that has made the region famous. The French have a saying worth pondering. We do not just sell champagne. We sell the place where champagne is born. At first glance, it may sound like a marketing slogan, but only when you set foot in the Champagne region will you understand that it is a truth. Because what makes this place famous is not just the sparkling bubbles in the glass of wine. It is the hillsides covered in vines, the ancient stone villages, and the atmosphere that makes one feel that each season of the year leaves a unique mark on every bunch of grapes. Champagne is located in the northeast of France, where the cool climate and the layer of chalk-rich soil have created very special conditions for grape cultivation. It is the combination of nature, the experience of many generations, and a strict production process that has made the name Champagne a protected geographical indication worldwide. Beneath the Avenue de Champagne in the city of Epernay lies a system of cellars stretching for dozens of kilometers, where tens of millions of bottles of champagne quietly mature in the dark. Above ground are the peaceful avenues, while below lies an underground city of time and patience. What surprised me the most was that the people here are almost inseparable from the vineyards. Since 2015, the hillsides, cellars, and historic producers of champagne have been designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Not because this place is more beautiful than other grape-growing regions, but because it is a rare example of a land shaping the identity of its own product. You can make sparkling wine in many places around the world, but champagne can truly only be born in Champagne. Like a melody that can be played anywhere, but its first emotion always belongs to the place where it was written. Perhaps that's why when you raise a glass of champagne, you are not just enjoying a drink. You are tasting the climate, the land, the history, and the efforts of countless generations who have preserved that land for hundreds of years. And now we will reach our final stop. A place where nature is not only picture perfect, but also makes you feel like you've just stepped onto another planet, the majestic Fjords of Norway. Tens of thousands of years ago, when massive glaciers slowly crawled across the lands of northern Europe, they left deep cuts such that today the sea can seep between the mountains. Humans call them fjords. But when the boat silently drifts between 2 towering cliffs, the water surface is smooth as a giant mirror reflecting the sky and the white waterfalls cascading from above. You will feel as if you are no longer standing on the familiar Earth. It's like stepping into the first morning of the planet, when nature has just completed its masterpiece and humans have yet to lay a hand on it. Norway has more than 1,000 fjords, and many of them are strictly protected as natural treasures. The 2 most famous names are Geiranger Fjord and Nærøy Fjord, both recognized as World Heritage Sites by UNESCO. The cliffs, thousands of meters high, embrace the deep blue waters, while waterfalls like the Seven Sisters or Bridal Veil gently cascade down the rocky slopes like silk ribbons. The miracle is that none of it was designed by humans. The only architects here are ice, water, wind, and time, working together for tens of thousands of years to create a structure that no civilization can replicate. And this is what truly leaves me speechless. If viewed from above, the fjords look like gigantic brushstrokes painted on the map of Norway. But when you are down below, you feel so small that the sound of the boat's engine becomes too loud in that vast space. Seals rest on the rocky outcrops, sea eagles circle in the sky, and the small wooden villages nestle by the water's edge as if humans are merely guests allowed to stay by nature. Perhaps that is the biggest difference. In many places, people change the landscape to suit themselves. In Norway, people learn how to live in harmony with the landscape. And this is also the answer for the entire journey today. Europe does not enchant us just because it has many famous landmarks. Each region preserves a part of the planet's memory. Edinburgh holds history, Bled keeps fairy tales, Meteora retains faith, Champagne embodies the identity of a land, and the fjords of Norway preserve the primal power of nature. That is also the reason why many tourists return to Europe multiple times in their lifetime. They don't just go to sightsee, but to rediscover a world where history, nature, and humanity coexist in a very rare balance. Perhaps the most miraculous thing about Europe does not lie in the ancient castles, the majestic cliffs, or the crystal-clear lakes. The miracle lies in how each region has preserved its own soul for hundreds, even thousands of years. Each place on today's list tells a different story about nature, history, and people, and it is this diversity that has made Europe one of the most fascinating destinations in the world. What about you? If you could only choose one of these 10 places to visit first, which one would you choose? Please share your choice and the reason in the comments. We would love to read your perspectives and experiences. If you love documentaries about travel, history, culture, and special places around the world, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next journeys. Finally, please note that the content in the video is compiled from reliable sources of documents, travel materials, historical information, and publicly available data at the time of production. Some figures, tour conditions, or local regulations may change over time. The purpose of the video is to provide information, share exploratory perspectives, and inspire travel, not to replace official advice or guidance. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.